With me tonight, Ashley Banfield, Julie Grant, Chanley Painter, ready to go. And we're going to begin with that autopsy. Chanley Painter had an opportunity to go through each page, figure out what is going on, and speak with one of the world's most renowned experts in the field, Dr. Cyril Wecht. Let's take a listen.
A shotgun blast, followed by two more, echo in this video capturing the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery.
He was clearly fighting for his life.
Autopsy results obtained by Court TV confirm Arbery suffered 3 close-range shotgun wounds.
Forensic science is really a very old field.
Court TV invited nationally acclaimed forensic expert Dr. Cyril Wecht to examine the documents and video in this case. In his opinion, the first shot pierced Arbery's chest and right lung.
The first wound hits him pretty much in the midline of the chest, in the breastbone area. Mr. Arbery would not have been rendered immobile from the first shot, so he was able to struggle and try to ward off any further shooting. I would say that he would have gone into shock within a matter of a few minutes, and then I would say in probably 10 to 15 minutes, he probably would have been dead.
Dr. Wecht, during his 40-year career, has performed 21,000 autopsies and supervised or signed off on another 41,000. He's been involved in some very prominent cases, including the deaths of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and JonBenet Ramsey. Before the official autopsy report was released, DA George Barnhill, while recusing himself from the case, suggested the first shot was to Arbery's hand.
So it is possible that that wrist shot was first, but the way I hear the shots being fired and I see the altercation ensuing, it seems to me that the wound of the midline of the chest was first.
The autopsy report concludes the manner of death is homicide and finds Arbery had no drugs or alcohol in his system at the time.
What I can see in the video is Mr. Arbery is struggling. He sees that somebody has a shotgun and is coming at him.
Both Travis and Gregory McMichael have been arrested and charged with felony murder and aggravated assault in Arbery's death. And based on his assessment of what he's seen so far, Dr. Wecht opines the shooting was no accident.
There's no question in my mind that Travis McMichael intended to shoot that first shot. And then he intended to shoot the second shot. And then they're struggling. He may make an argument, McMichael, about that third shot, that went off while they were struggling for the gun. That has some plausibility. I'll leave that for a future day.
Fascinating take on the report and the video, putting them together. He's done a lot of these cases. Let's bring back in my colleagues. And, Ashley, first of all, are you surprised that Dr. Wecht believes the first shot was the one to the chest? Because, again, as Chanley pointed out, completely contradicts the first DA's analysis of the case.
Right. This would not be the first time, Vinny, that Dr. Wecht has had a difference of opinion with coroners. I'm thinking about Brittany Murphy's death in Los Angeles. He completely disagreed with the LA County coroner's determination of how Brittany Murphy, the celebrity, died. So this happens. It's not that unusual. What I do find shocking is how much struggle would have happened after that shot to the chest. It would have seemed to me, just as a layperson, I do not have that many degrees after my name, that the first shot would be the one that grazed him. And the struggle ensued until he was shot in the chest and fell. But adrenaline is also known to do incredible things when people are shot. We also know that from the Michael Brown case. Michael Brown was shot upwards of 5 times, I believe. So I'm surprised and I'm not surprised all at the same time.
Julie Grant, do you think it's going to matter if we have some level of a battle of experts or a difference of opinions, which shot hits him? I mean, it's 3 shots. Do you think it matters in the case which one's first, which one's second, which one's third?
Well, that's a tough one. I think it always does matter because I think each side is going to embrace the narrative and try to take the facts and make them seem favorable to their position in the courtroom, right? No matter how it went down. And Dr. Wecht, of course, one of the world's leading experts in forensic pathology, if he says the first shot was to the chest, my money is on him, Vinny. And it is shocking. And as you saw him, an expert in this area, explain, that didn't render him unstoppable. He still was able to struggle, didn't immobilize him. He was fighting for his life, essentially, is what we're seeing. So, yes, I do think it does matter. And the wrist versus the chest, it'll all come out when we go in that courtroom. And Dr. Wecht is the perfect expert to have his eyes on this case because he is also a lawyer as well, Vinny.
Absolutely. Chanley, you spoke with him today. What surprised you the most? Was it the which shot he thought came first, or was there anything else that he pointed out that you're like, wow?
Yeah, that was the first surprise for me because I have studied George Barnhill's letter and his interpretation of the autopsy report. Now, he's not a forensic pathologist, he's a prosecutor, right? And how he interpreted it really interested me because it's still the way that Dr. Weck explains it. It makes sense that the gunshot to the chest could have been first because it didn't damage as many organs as the second one did, or it's the third overall hit to his body. So that was the first surprise to me and how he reached that conclusion. But also, given Barnhill's letter, he seems to indicate in one point that if Travis McMichael has his hand on the trigger, his finger on the trigger during this altercation, Barnhill's letter seems to say that maybe some of those gunshots were the result of the struggle back and forth to the gun and weren't that intentional. And so I asked Dr. Weck about that, and his answer to that surprised me also. And that was the end of our story here, that the third one, he said, was the only one, in his opinion, that could have maybe plausibly been inadvertent. But the first two, in his opinion, were definitely intentional.
All right, let's take a listen to Dr. Weck describing the close-range contact blasts.
The point is that both of these wounds were essentially contact, extremely close range. There is dispersal of the pellets within Mr. Arbery's body and enough force to take pellets, some of them, out through his back on both right and left sides from the two respective wounds. That does not happen often, for pellets to emerge through someone's chest. That requires a lot of force. The force comes from the fact that the wounds were inflicted in essentially contact nature. The wounds also are described as large circular wounds. There is not a lot of the irregularities that we see. One wound on the left side, he does describe a little bit of scalloping. Scalloping is a phrase used in shotgun wounds. Think of a scallop shell that has the little ripples on the edges. And that's what we mean by scalloping, as the pellets emerge and they don't come out like one bullet from a handgun. And so they cause that scalloping. A little bit of scalloping is noted on the left side, not much. And no scalloping is noted on the right side. This is further indication that the shots were fired very close.
You know, getting back to the issue of which shot is first, which is second, if one is more of a grazing, Ashley, I might expect that perhaps the investigators at the scene, retrieving and tracking where some of these pellets may have gone, might be able to help put those pieces together.
If they did it, I mean, you and I have covered cases endlessly where police don't actually gather the evidence appropriately. Usually we find out about that at trial. Let's hope that they did an appropriate investigation at the scene, that they actually did those little markers. They're usually yellow markers that they put down where they find casings. Let's hope that they processed the scene appropriately and didn't trudge through it and, you know, disturb the scene. That will come out eventually, you would think. I want to go back, though, for a second, Vinny, to what Chanley just said about this notion that Dr. Weck, you know, talked about pulling the the gun, and if Travis McMichael's finger was on the trigger and the gun was pulled, well, that might discharge. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. When I took my NRA gun safety course, I was told over and over and over and over again until I was blue in the face how you keep your finger above the trigger, right? You keep it on the barrel. When you're ready to shoot, it goes on the trigger. So you can't have a battle with someone with your finger on the trigger and not expect you're going to be responsible for what happens next. I can't stress this enough. Gun responsibility. All gun owners, for the most part, know this. You have a duty to be responsible in the way you handle your weapon. And so I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to buy into that being a problem, that perhaps somebody struggling for his life nudged your gun and it went off. Your finger was on the trigger. It's on you.
Yeah, and that raises another question, Julie, about, we don't know exactly what the McMichael's defense is going to be, or Travis McMichael's defense. Is it going to be straight self-defense or like self-defense or accidental shooting? It seems a lot of it may result from what the forensics say and what a pathologist is going to say and what any sort of expert could come in and testify to.
Oh, sure. They have to examine all of the evidence, see what's received in discovery. This has a long way to go, certainly until we get to that point and see. But it seems to me, just in the rumblings and what I've read in terms of how the police approached the first district attorney and were, according to her, classifying this as a self-defense case, it seems to me like the defense is probably going to present something like a justification defense to try to say that this is a justifiable homicide, not to say it was an accidental homicide, but it seems to me like they're going to try to justify it because of this narrative about the burglary and him going into homes in the area and knowing him to be someone who's participated in break-ins, allegedly, according to their narrative. It really seems that that's probably the direction they're going with. But you're right, the science can't be made up or reconstructed. It is what it is. So we'll see what that dictates and how that affects the presentation they put forward. But again, deadly force, to me, this case just screams disproportionality. Deadly force has to be proportional. And here you have a man fighting for his life with his fists, struggling with that shotgun, shot at close range, as Dr. Wecht reiterated. And we can't see from that video, that initial encounter. That is the one part of this that, I struggle every day as we keep reviewing this and reviewing it. And hopefully we can get some more answers as the evidence continues to be examined.
Chanley, quickly, did Dr. Wecht have any questions, like things that he wanted to know that would help him further figure things out here, like some unanswered questions from the information?
He did. As he gave his answer, he would give a caveat as to, well, if I had this information or this information. A lot of times the forensic pathologist goes to the scene of a shooting to really examine the evidence. And one thing he pointed out was he wanted to know how much blood loss was on the ground around him. That would help him know a little bit more about this or that. So yes, throughout the interview, he would point out certain things that he would like to know that were from the actual crime scene. And plus in the video, there's parts of the video that are blocked out. The first gunshot is fired and you can't see the two, Travis and Arbery, in the shot there, and then the second one as well. So yes, he had several questions that he would like answered.
All right, great job, Chanley, answering some questions for us tonight. All right, when we come back, a really important part of this case, right? There's a woman who kept pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure that her voice was heard. We're talking about Ahmaud's mother, who was not satisfied with the way things were going, so she made things happen. Her interview with Court TV's Julia Janae next.
My family saw the videos when the world saw the videos.